Even though he has not always been protected, he's always been a protector.
Broken people saw that signal and done what they thought they needed to do to the request that I was making, and they just chose improperly.
He never told me nothing. I knew nothing about it.
I feel like everyone in my family, in some form or way, has been fondled or molested or raped in some form or fashion.
I couldn't understand how God was in me because I was that.
Larry was tolerated versus celebrated.
There's a wrong way and right way to do everything, and Larry always seemed to choose the wrong way.
Yes, I was drugged and raped, and that happened when I was 17 years old. Misfits have an ability to stick out. But if the misfit accept that they absolutely cannot fit in, then they become someone with an X factor.
Multimedia personality, comedic commentator, songwriter, recording artist, spiritual leader, author, and actor. Larry D. Reid is the founder of the MBN Network, owner of LDR Enterprises based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and the spiritual leader of the Reformation Church of Atlanta. You can catch Larry Reid on the BET Plus original series Kingdom Business and on American Gangsta Trap Queens. Streaming online at BET.plus. The MBN Network is a nonprofit organization based in Atlanta, Georgia. We are a streaming, radio, and ministry network funded by a network of partners that are professionals, technicians, entrepreneurs, and entertainers from around the world. Become a member of Patreon today at patreon.com/Larry Reid Live to gain access to all that the NBN Network has to offer. On Sundays, tune in for prayer, prophecy, and coaching call, available for Patreon members only. Join in on the morning meditation and prayer call, open to the public Monday through Friday. On Monday evenings, catch the digital entertainment news show, Larry Reid Live, as Dr. Reid discusses an array of topics with a raw, humorous, and controversial approach. Get informed and inspired on Tier 2 Tuesdays for Tier 2 Patreon members only. Wednesday night breakdown with Dr. Reid, the virtual prophets, pastoral counselors, and coaches, available for Tier 2 Patreon members only. Participate in Therapy Thursdays and Financial Fridays for all tiers, inside of Patreon only. Saturdays, rest and be with your family. Become a member today by logging on to patreon.com/Larry Reid Live today. Church Critic by Dr. Larry D. Reid. An examination of the Larry Reid Live show perspective. Purchase a copy today by logging on to LarryReidLive.com. That's LarryReidLive.com. Stay connected to Larry Reid Live. Take a moment and like the Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube page, and hit the bell. Text LRL to 404-999-7527. That's the words LRL to 404-999-7527. And get notified when we go live. Become a member of Patreon. Log on to patreon.com/Larry Reid Live. Sign up, then download the Patreon app and turn on your notifications. Get connected today.
We're about to have a conversation. All right, today's date is November the 3rd of 2024, and you guys, on Tuesday, we're going to have to make a decision about who we want to be our president. How many of you, let me know in the chat if you've already voted. I've already cast my vote, and I told you guys that my vote was for Kamala. And the reason why is that she lies less than Donald Trump. She don't tell as many lies. But she's definitely doing the political thing, that requires some little bit of line and polishing and decorating of things. And she's a woman. I think it's time for a female president. We already had a black person in the presidency, so the black aspect ain't at the top of my list. It is more so that I just think that she's more qualified, and I also think that she's smarter and got the right smart parts for the presidency. And that's what I've done. What did you do? If you don't mind saying it in the chat or in the comment section, who you voted for. Oh, a lot of you have already voted. That is great, 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 great. Okay, so the conversation that we're going to be having tonight is a continuation of the conversation that we had almost, is it 5 or 6 days ago? How many days ago? It was on the 28th of October, so however long that was. And since we have had that conversation publicly, there's a lot of things that has transpired. And I want to tell you what those things are. And then I also want to ask him some questions as it relates to that era, because prior to meeting him, you guys know that I have had several discussions about Texas. And I told you guys in 2018 that it's all coming out of Texas. And I will go ahead and repeat what I've said before. Patrons know this. In that time, I was very vocal in Patreon saying that when I say everything's coming out of Texas, I'm speaking to a few things. One of the things is the mega pastors in the state of Texas, and now we see it in this year, have all had somewhat of the same kind of situations. And we do not have any proof as far as video or doctor's report from kits and things of that nature, but some of these pastors have been found by their own admission being inappropriate, improper, and way less than perfect. And we already know that anyway, although some of us like to live in a fantasy world and feel like that these men and women that are in the pulpit and are prophets and have these amazing gifts and talent and very, wonderful at what they do. I think sometimes we forget these are whole entire people, just like me and you. And they have a past, and they have the glory that is on their life, but then also the gore that is in their life, the godly and the ungodly story, the great, wonderful things about them, and then the not so great things about them. And then they mess around and end up in an influential position. And if they're very successful at what they do and great at it, then they end up with means and position and power. And then all this ugly stuff, underdeveloped stuff, unaddressed stuff that hasn't been healed and dealt with comes up. And a lot of times we end up seeing these bad behaviors and horrible character traits manifest in their ministries. And hey, we have discussed that here 159,000 times. But one thing that we have never had on this platform, and I can't say that I've seen it anywhere else, except for many years ago, I was a faithful Oprah Winfrey Show watcher. And I remember her having a killer and interviewing him. And I was so mesmerized. And if I just keep it honest, we are used to the victim story. We're used to the victim story. And the reality is, unbeknownst to us, a whole lot of people that were not victims, they masquerade as victims. And we believed it because we were a real victim and we listening to their lying victim story through our lens that is real. And we believe what we believe. Some of us, we believe the victims. Some of us have seen victims that lie, and they ain't even really victims, they're accusers, and we don't believe them. I think every case and every situation we should look at isolated from our own pain, our own biases and experiences, and just listen detached from our own experience and get involved in the conversation for what it's worth. We don't need to know at this point, I can speak for myself, it's not a matter of if it is true or not for me at this point, because the conversation is much broader. Now, I do know some things, and I have seen some receipts and done some cross examinations, and I do feel like the majority of this is true, but I don't have no proof, meaning that I am not Duane Youngblood. I am not the other people that has accused other leaders of certain things. We won't there. We ain't seen nobody do nothing. But as much as possible, I verified and I know it's true. But the conversation for me ain't about whether it's true and whether Duane is sorry for violating people. That ain't the conversation, because that's like an endless conversation. The conversation that I'm most interested in is what I titled the darn show, and it's like people don't even pay that no attention. It's an abused person. We left out something, a groomed and abused. Now, had I known all the details of the story, I would have put that on the flyer. A groomed and abused person who then groomed and abused. I don't know about you, but I haven't been able to have a real honest conversation with someone about that. And definitely not on this platform. And this is the privilege that we get. It's a privilege. I do want to say, for those of you that are still working through some stuff, and start those questions, Kendall, as they come in. And we're going to answer your questions. You put them in the chat, but be respectful. The conversation is so elevated right now, and I like this conversation about getting into the mind of someone who has went from groomed, abused, groomed, abuser. It's interesting to me. It's sad, shocking. It makes me feel heavy. And that probably is from some of the other stories that I've heard and I know about, and my own personal secrets that I've carried about my own abuse that I don't think would do me any good to share publicly. But it's making me remember when I was in that area of my life, when I was sharing, telling my mom and my daddy and my sisters and cousins and having those conversations. I've already had those conversations. I've done a lot of that work. Because let me tell y'all something. When you are sharing and expressing what it is that you have went through or done, there is a feeling of relief because you're able to be honest and tell the truth. That's true. But, and I could be wrong, but I'm just saying what I think and from my experience. When I was telling all of that stuff, it felt good. I was finally being heard. But ultimately, when my head hit that pillow, a few days later or weeks later or the next month, I was still dealing with the same thing that I was dealing with before I even told it. So I started to be like, how much do I benefit from just continually telling this story over and over? And it didn't contribute to my healing. So, and maybe that's personal for me. So then I just moved away from that worked on the healing part. Then I done my documentary. And the documentary for me was focusing on what mattered and not who did me wrong and all of what they did. When I listen to Duane Youngblood, and he's already in the green room, we're about to get started. Go ahead and hit like. This is your moment to get your drink, get your chips and everything. But now that I've done the healing work, I tell my story, but I tell it differently, like I did in my documentary. And shout out to my siblings, my niece, my cousins, friends that all were in the documentary and really shared. I hope that this conversation that we are having, that you guys do not lower it so low and it's become salacious content on the internet. I know about these other vloggers and platforms, and their job is to deal with the salacious. I'm not gonna make it wrong or right. It just ain't what I do. And I want us to have a conversation. I want y'all to ask questions. I want us to everybody to leave the conversation clear and thinking. All right. So are y'all ready now? All right, let's go ahead and bring in Duane Youngblood. How are you?
Excellent.
All right, great. Now, we already know who you are, so we can get right into the conversation. I actually have some questions and some statements I want to ask you, and then I see some coming in the chat. You got 3 more minutes to put your questions in the chat that you have for Duane Youngblood and myself. All right, so since the interview, really the conversation that we just had on camera, how have you felt?
It has been an extremely interesting week. Most nights I have not slept through the night. I've had feelings at times of anxious. I've had times where happy, frustrated, lighter. There's been a lot of a mix of things because it became much bigger than what my mind had even conceived it could be when I was having the conversation. In addition to that, there are people in my history that I'm very much concerned about, people in my life that I'm very concerned about, my family, across the board. I've gotten so much great support from them this week, and it's just been, in that side of it, been extremely well. There are people in my family that I have not had the privilege of being able to fully discuss these things. So some of this is new. One of the things that I realized this week, if never before, was the grace on my life. When you go through the types of things that I was sharing from 9 years of age forward, and you survive them, and then not only survive, but you are able to live to come to the day where you say, I want to see if I can do something that's going to be beneficial for somebody else. It's an awesome opportunity to get there. And I'm excited because I've gotten to that place in this journey. Is everything totally the way I wish it was? Not at all. But I tell you this much, it is in an excellent place, and I'm moving forward with everything that pertains to what I believe to be my purpose at this stage in my life. And so I'm excited about it. But it's been a very interesting week because it's a new experience.
New experience for you. When you say the grace that is on your life, I think that's preacher talk. So break it down.
Yeah, I'll break it down.
Yeah.
I believe wholeheartedly that each one of us has something unique and definitive to do that is attached to our DNA, our family.
Mm-hmm.
To go through what I've gone through, I've talked to a lot of people who just they were not able to come to the place that I've been able to come, where I could sit and have a conversation like this. And so I believe that is credited to God. I don't credit
Gotcha.
my ability to sit here to myself, because I'm just a human. I'm just a man. I've got feelings and emotions. I chose this week to not watch the videos. My brother was a
Great.
gracious
That's great.
me
That is
to
great.
he watched videos and stuff, and I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to hear what no one had to say, no one had to share. I didn't want to be slanted one way or the other. I knew that I came in here and started a story about my own abuse.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I abused others, hurt people in my own congregation. I started there. I went to talking about my own natural father.
Mm-hmm.
So people may have tried to turn it, twist it, but I started in the most difficult place to start for a human, is with yourself.
And that I'm so glad that you were a yes to start it like that, because the conversation needed to be real. And if we're going to be real, we can't just talk about your abuse.
No.
We had to talk about what happened as a result of your grooming and being abused. And that needs to really hit home with everybody, because
Yes.
we don't get to have this conversation. People aren't that honest to where they say, you know what, this is what I did. And you went into detail and you asked questions. One thing that I said to you that someone said something to me about me addressing this, and it was when you explained, because you said there was 2 victims, and the first one or the second one, you had to correct me, but the mom told you about the diary.
Correct. That was the first one.
Yeah, there was same gender loving thoughts and all of that. You spoke with him. You sent the secretary home.
Correct.
So there was some moves and things, because you had the information. Then you spoke with the young guy, and then when he was like, "Well, yeah, although you trying to talk to me for my mom, I'm down with the get down, and I want to go and explore." And then you were like, "Okay," well, and I guess you shared that you had the same feelings, and then y'all went and touched and whatever. That for me, it seems manipulative. What do you say about that? Were you consciously manipulating, or were you just in the desire of it and was fixated?
Oh, in that time of my life, I think when we talked, I used the word autopilot.
How old were you?
Oh, that was 2002.
Okay.
So that's 22 years ago. I would have been 35 years old.
Gotcha.
That's autopilot. And on autopilot, I learned how to get what I wanted, how to get through situations and circumstances. Listen, I want to be very, very clear. This person had zero power. I had all the power. I was sitting across the desk. I was in the pastor's position, the pastor's seat. I had all the power. That's the reason why I said to the secretary not to be in the office that day. There is no question it was manipulation.
Right.
Because I'm using whatever I had to get what I could gain. And if I allow this to go down the wrong street, if I take it down the wrong street, if I propose it go down the wrong street, all of that is through manipulation. All of that would be inappropriate to do. And this is the reason why it ended up with a charge that ultimately comes down to a sexual assault.
Right.
And
Was it, excuse me, was it forced touching, or was it
No.
mutual?
No, it wasn't forced. It was mutual. There was conversation the whole way through. The reality, though, is that the person was 15 years old.
Yeah.
And there was no way for them to give consent. And so it doesn't matter if it was mutual or whatever. there was no way to give consent. One of the things that I'm grateful for is that in my experience in therapy with all of this, the one thing that I've become very, very clear about is the need for personal responsibility. There are times in having these conversations when this stuff is tough, but I'm fully aware of my personal responsibility, not just in that scenario, but the whole time I was a pastor. Every time I made a decision, every time I hired, I fired, every time I coordinated, whatever it was, I had the position, I had the responsibility, and I took that responsibility. I take it again, even tonight, because again, the last thing that anybody in my position or capacity should do is use someone's mishap, weakness, issues, challenges against them in a way that takes them further into the rabbit hole that maybe they've been living in, trying to get out of, whatever it may be. So I was not good at that stage of my life. I really believe, Larry, that I had been operating, I was talking earlier, and I likened this to a computer with a virus. I don't care what you try to do, the more you use it, the more the virus begins to damage the computer. And the only way to deal with this stuff is that you've got to have something redone with this hard drive. It's got to be redone. It's got to be fixed. This virus has got to be uprooted. And I believe the reason why I wanted to share the stories of abuse as well is because that's how I got hardwired. There were so many things happening in my childhood and in my life that was a part of the hardwiring, but I made the adult decisions. I was the one that committed the crime. I am fully responsible for what I did. And therefore, I went to prison. I served time in prison. I've come home. I've been in therapy, and I am working every single solitary day to make sure that my last days are so much better for others than what my early days were.
I think that anybody that got any good sense would listen to you. There's so much for us to learn here. While you're talking, I'm going through my mind of my pastoring. I started pastoring as a teenager. So can you imagine?
Yes.
The mistakes I could have made.
Absolutely.
But and I made them. I made mistakes. And I was freshly married. It was just a recipe for disaster. But I'm so thankful that I was able to help way more than I harmed. And none of my harm was intentional or thought out or calculated. I wasn't old enough. You were 35. I was not even old enough and developed enough. And I'm not talking about number, but I'm talking about development and age to know, you know what? It won't later on until I said, y'all shouldn't be calling me dad. Y'all got your own dads. Don't call me dad. It's little stuff like that creates a culture that is unsafe.
Yep.
And it's literally a pseudo reality that you create. Now, while I believe that the first institution God established was the family, the second was the church. And in my opinion, the church a lot of times becomes like a foster family. But that's a foster family. It's not your family.
No.
And there were some things that we were saying and doing that just, was not good. And people weren't going home with their family for Christmas and for Thanksgiving. I was creating that for them there because most of their families, their mom, dad was on drugs, or they was either estranged from their parents for whatever reason. And the only thing I knew was whatever they told me, so I'm thinking I'm creating a great community for everyone. But looking back, that there were better ways to do things.
Yes. And
however, I am grateful because it could have been way worse.
Absolutely.
Anybody with good sense, whether you own a business, you're not a pastor, and you're no longer pastoring, right?
No.
And did you say that you're no longer pastoring because you don't trust yourself to pastor? Why is that?
No, the reason that I'm not pastoring, first and foremost, I believe that a person with a virus that I was carrying and the actions that I exhibited, the last thing you should do at that point is to pastor people. So I
Amen.
wanted to take the time to work on me, what I needed. And that was never going to happen if I
No.
needed to continually step up on a stage and try to lead people. So
That's
I'm taking the time that I need for myself to do the things that I believe are key, essential, and important for me to do. And that does not include pastoring a church.
wow. Do you feel like if you were not groomed and abused and violated? Now, it was interesting to me, put a pin there, like my baby mama say. You in the conversation, I don't know if you realize you're doing this. You either have done a lot of work, it got to be the work, because there's no way. You were telling the stories about Bishop Wilson, Bishop Jakes, Bishop Watkins. And in that, we fell into that you watched your dad be as he was and abusing, violating, violating your sister for years. And then you were raped too. So it's like, I'm like, it's almost like, and this goes to my question.
Mhm.
Do you feel like if you didn't have all those things that happened to you, that you would have never then groomed and violated somebody?
I'm glad that's a great question. And I want to answer that question for the people that are watching us tonight or will ever watch this again. Do not ever think you'll know that answer. You'll never know that answer. And to try and get that answer is to drive yourself almost crazy. Because one thing that I've learned in the last year is to own my story. And here's the tough part of owning your story. You don't get to rewrite it.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to own it, that means that happened and this is what I did. Now, I believe that there are some things that if I had got access to them, that stuff may not have come out of my life. But what I've learned in therapy is that when you have parents with negative attributes and you kick them out your heart, chances are you can no longer identify those attributes in yourself.
Absolutely.
So what was going on with my father may have been in me to some degree, some potential. It may have been there. But because I had kicked him out and had taken such a primary role in my family at the time and trying to be protective and all this stuff that I was trying to do out of fear, I was ignoring indicators and signs that there's something going on here that you need to pay attention to. And I encourage people tonight, pay attention to the signs in your own day-to-day activity. You don't have to change nothing about 10 years ago. Look at what's going on tonight, tomorrow, next week, last week. Pay attention to yourself. Get present with yourself, and you'll discover some of the very things you don't like about the people in your family you have in common with them. And so I don't have to hate my family. I got to embrace that we're human. And that's how I got to the point to where I can say, I love my father. I'm honored to be his son. I'm honored to be Duane Youngblood. And
you have to reconcile with that. You have to get clear on that and release your parents of whatever it is you're holding over them and whatever you feel like they owe you an apology for. And I know that's hard to hear.
Yes.
But I'm telling you as someone who had to do that.
Yes.
And that is it changed my life in 2022. I am now the man that I always knew I was. But the pain was deep and I couldn't get it out. So what happened, my parents showed me an act of love, drove to Georgia to see me on my birthday.
Wow.
And they were my surprise guests. And when I saw them, and anybody that know me and my parents, that was a spiritual experience. They walked up to me. It was as my surprise, and we embraced and wept.
Wow.
Our hearts had a conversation that our mouth and our mind could never have.
Wow.
Out from heart to heart and weeping. I thought I had already forgave them, but in that moment, I realized that I forgave them. They forgave me, because you know how when you get abused, you can end up you turn into your abuser, and everybody's wrong, and you don't take no responsibility. I know I hurt my parents too. There were things I said. I didn't come home. You know, when you are a parent, you have a child, you want to see your child. I went years. We were estranged for 2 decades.
That's right.
You know, so there's that. I want to address this right here because I want to help everybody. And this is a LRL. She says, with all due respect, the abuser may have a different answer as to if it was mutual. Well, you know, when you're listening in conversation like this, you have to listen completely, because what Duane said was, and I asked him, was it mutual? And he said, I asked him, was it forced? That was the question. And he said, no, you know, it was like consensual. Then he said, I am or was the responsible party. Said that person couldn't, and then you say that person could really not give consent because you had the power.
That's
so
right.
I want to challenge everybody in the chat to listen and not look for. Don't listen to this conversation like you do everything else on YouTube and TV. Don't listen for the salacious. Don't listen for the tea. Listen for the lesson. Every time you come here, it's laugh and learn. That's what I say all the time. You come to laugh and you come to learn. Mm-hmm. And so I want to challenge everybody to listen fully to what is being said. And let's stay in the conversation of from groom to abused, then to turning into a groomer and an abuser. Okay, so I want to so your answer to that question is that you really do not know. It reminds me, I asked someone that was I'm gonna be transparent, which I've already had this discussion. I said I won't have it no more, but here it is. I used to wonder, would I have any kind of attraction to the same sex if if my first memory wasn't the smell of a man's crotch and choking on a penis? And I wondered that. And what I realized is the power of conditioning. Because of what was happening in my family and the incest, I wasn't the only one. My sister's in the chat, my older sister. It was tens of us. And this went on for generations and generations and generations. To this very day, I believe, when I go and see some of my family members and the young people, I look in their eye and I know that look. And I got to a place to where I was like, you know what? That don't matter.
That's right.
It doesn't matter. And so I understand your answer to that. All right. So what do you say to those who say, as it relates to Bishop Quander Wilson, because that's the first person that violated you, then Bishop Jakes that violated, groomed you, then Bishop Sherman Watkins. What do you say to those people who say, well, they didn't force you to do anything from your own story? It doesn't sound like they forced themselves upon you. It doesn't sound like that they were predatory in the sense of force and taking it and making you do. So it just sounds like you had a moment with leaders that you admired and lightweight celebrities as a young preacher. So you got what you wanted. Now you look back and you didn't get everything you wanted. Now you picking over the story and making yourself a victim since you have committed a crime. What do you say about that?
Well, I think that those individuals absolutely, for one, they don't know me, but two, they didn't hear the story. So let's go to the story again so we're clear. I was asleep when Quandra Wilson put his hands, and I use genitals because I'm being extremely clean in what I say here. I was sleeping. I was told by him that he had 5 big bedrooms. The bedroom at the end of the hall is the biggest one with the biggest bed. A man in his stature would have easily said, oh, there's 4 rooms because the one at the end of the hall is mine. He said, I've got 5, giving me the choice, and then came in that room in the middle of the night, climbed in that bed with me, and while I was sleeping, put his hands on me in a very inappropriate manner. And when I woke up, he acted as if he were speaking in tongues over me and praying. Now, if that's not a level of force, first and foremost, I was 16. So this is the chief apostle. There is no way possible I am going to come at this man. I was in awe of this man. And so even when he did that, I simply rolled over and tried to fake like I was going to sleep because I had the utmost respect for him, but it was doing something terrible to me. When it comes to Bishop Jakes, when I was sharing the story the other day, I'm just running through the story, but I want to make sure people are very clear. I said that we were sitting at a dining room table, and I looked at my watch and said, I've got to get up and get out of here because I've got to get my mother's car back to her. But what may have been misunderstood is that Bishop Jakes got up, came around that table, and positioned himself in the corner that I had to walk past. When I was walking past that corner, he grabbed me. There is no reason, if you're going to just give me a hug as we're leaving, go to the door with me and let's hug it out and let me go out the door. We are not at the door. We are still in the dining room, and he is in the corner, grabbed me to himself, looked down into my face, and then tried to bend his head down to kiss me on my lips. That is not you didn't get what you wanted to get. When I got home that next day, what I learned by Bishop Jakes' phone call to me was what he thought of me.
Yes.
Because he said, there's 3 things that I need you to do without hesitation. There's no long build-up or nothing. So it tells me that the conversation that I had with him, his observation of me, made him believe that what he was getting ready to share, I would go with it. That means he had thoughts about my sexuality, my identity, all of those things before he even made the suggestion. And so he suggested to me, 1, you're going to be the only person I'm going to have sex with when I come to Pittsburgh. 2, you can't sleep with nobody else because I can't give this to my wife. And 3, I'm going to take care of you the rest of your life. To me, that is absolutely forcing your position, your idea onto the person. When I go to church that night, forcing me to read for you, absolutely. When we get to Bishop Watkins, and I share.
Yes, I want you to go into that, but I just want you to know that by no means am I, you already done your crime and time. By no means am I coming at you any kind of way.
No.
Just so there's more clarity.
Yeah, that's why I want to clarify it.
And I must say that you've been very kind in the way that you're describing it. And you're not, this is my opinion. I think that, and this is hard for me to believe, not that I don't believe you. I just try to put myself in people's shoes, and I can't understand why. Who did that to Bishop Jakes for him to think that was okay? I mean, that is force. You didn't ask. There was no conversation before. He didn't know you. He just looked at you. If you're a nice looking man at 57, so I would think that 20 years ago you probably looked even nicer.
Thank you.
At least that's what I would think. But you know, a lot of times black look better the older we get. I look better than I ever looked in my life. But it just, it's hard for me to understand that. And how could that turn you on? I'm no judgment if you guys are into BDSM, but I don't understand how that can be a turn on for him to try to kiss somebody and then to tell you that I'm going to take the kiss. And he haven't had a conversation with you. And you hadn't told him whether you were same gender loving or not, right?
This is no, and this is the reason why.
So I
am clear.
I got a question.
He had ideas.
That right. So that's that. So this is why I said what I said. Do you think you were passed around without knowing? Because I know preachers today how they do. If they knock one down, rub one, sex text, they tell each other. So do any part of you believe that he had an inkling already, had heard rumors, and he just chose you?
Well, listen, from what I would understand when I've asked people who were around my life at that time, I probably showed signs of a person who was same gender loving, and in private, not at the church, not at the dinner table that night where there were other people, but it was just he and I. In private, I had just been quite enamored with his presence, our conversation, all of it. And in many cases, again, I've been on the other side of this, all their defenses are down after all that. And so, again, remember this, I shared with you that Bishop Jakes told me the reason he did this and said this to me was because his stock was rising and he would have slept with anybody. So I believe that I was just another person, another opportunity, and he didn't have self-control to deal with that opportunity that he felt was in front of him.
And then the man, Quandra, am I saying that? Quander, speaking in tongues. I remember I walked a few pastors through some things before I even started pastoring, because I was like a house prophet. And I remember this pastor that was caught. And when it was time for him to be addressed, I mean, he went the spiritual route, speaking in tongues and all that kind of stuff. So I do have some reference, but how you go slip in a bed to a teenager, touching their genitals, and then you wake up, you speaking in tongues, that made me feel like you are wicked.
Well, I want to make sure.
And I'm not trying to judge. I mean, I know rest in peace because he's passed. And I'm not a judge kind of person, because I'm sure somebody did this to him. He was warped. But that just sounds wicked for you to then use spirituality, God, and religion to sort of cloak. That means you were already doing it. That to cloak your sexuality and that you're a predator. I mean.
Well, Bishop Wilson was the founder of our organization, Greater Emmanuel, but he's also the man who ordained Bishop Jakes and Bishop Watkins as bishops. So
hold up. You didn't clarify that to me. Look, I don't know these people.
Yeah, I didn't.
So, well then darn. So it's just a spirit. So Quander birthed these other two that violated you.
These two were in the same organization. We were all in Greater Emmanuel. I was just much younger. We were all in Greater Emmanuel under Quander Wilson. In 1988, Sherman Watkins left and started his own organization out of Greater Emmanuel. And Bishop Jakes, after being made a bishop by Quander Wilson, he left and joined Bishop Watkins as his vice bishop. So it is an extension in the leadership component of the nature of Greater Emmanuel. And so I am not surprised. And again, it's not just them. The culture of Greater Emmanuel, the culture of Higher Ground exhibits these types of things. I was a part of both organizations. I was a young man and a young minister and just started pastoring in Greater Emmanuel. I was in Higher Ground 15 plus years serving Bishop Watkins. And so it's been cultural for me. I don't know any other organizations, but in this, I can see that this type of thing has been extremely cultural. And I believe there's a lot of people who, if you have these types of stories, you'll recognize that there was a cultural permission for this type of stuff. I know personally myself that if I had conversations with Bishop Watkins around this type of activity, which is totally inappropriate for a pastor, it was absolutely laughed. We laughed. We talked about what I did, what he was doing, whatever it was. This was cultural. And so when I left in 2005, I wasn't holier than thou. I left messed up. I left doing mess. I left having hurt people, but I knew inwardly. That's why I'm talking about this grace tonight. I wanted something different.
So the reality is you were groomed by this network of, predators. And then you became one of the boys,
Yes.
like them. And then you went and did the same thing.
Yes.
I understand that. I'm gonna tell you one of the reasons why I'm going through a lot of changes with this, because I believe so much in the goodness of humans. And I feel like folk make bad choices, and the humanity that's unfinished, underdeveloped, unhealed, unprocessed get the best of them. But it's difficult for me to believe that somebody would set out to do this. Because in my mind, the armor bearer and the pastor, they spend a lot of time together. There's preaching, prayer, travel. Lines get crossed. I get that. Y'all making each other come. I got that. She's your secretary. Y'all always dealing. It's like a work wife. Lines get crossed. Y'all having sex. It goes on for 10 years. Then it stops. I get that. You get drunk. You have sex with somebody. I'm not making any of this right, but that makes sense. But going after somebody, that makes no sense to me. And I'm like, you have to be messed up. So who did this? So I wonder who did it to Quanda. I wonder, did Quanda do it to Watkins? And did Watkins do it to Jakes? And Jakes did it to you before Watkins got his chance at you. That just looked like that's what it is to me. And I want to say this. If any of these pastors and preachers that we are discussing have blessed your life, then hold that as your primary thought about them. Honor them for that and hold them in high regard. But in addition to that, accept any and all truth that is linked and tied to their humanity and their imperfections. You don't have to choose one or the other. You can do both.
That's right.
And I'm telling you, you should do both. Because if somebody was used by God to help you, you honor that and hold that in high regard. I know hearing this, it may hurt because his story cannot be made up. We had Brian Keith Williams to come in the chat to confirm. I've talked to 6 other people and haven't told you nothing about it because we've had one conversation since our last interview and text on top of that, who confirm as much as possible, because nobody was there when these acts happened, so we don't know how that happened, if it happened. We're just going by what you said. But everything else outside of that, everybody confirms. Everybody, these people, I'm being relative. I say everybody, but these people confirm time, date, year, place, and everything else you're saying. So I'm inclined to believe, because of that and the fact that I received a phone call 24 hours, quicker than 24 hours before we finished, of trying to find out from one of several fixers that Bishop Jakes has, trying to find out what they need to do before part 2 or part 3 or part 4. I've been doing this a while. That only happens when truth has been told. So I'm inclined to believe you. At the same time, I know that I wasn't there. And I also know I could be looking at this through my lens, and I'm a little biased. But I will be honest and say that I do believe you. I believe that you're telling the truth. Energetically, you feel honest. It doesn't feel that you're mad. You don't seem mad at all.
Mm-mm.
And you don't feel like you're trying to get anybody back.
No.
You just telling the story. And it's blessing our socks off, because we've never seen someone who has abused and went to jail come out and say, this is how I got here. This is what I done. And this is on me. I just ain't seen that. So hats off to you. And thank you, because I don't know how great of a ministry you had before, although I heard it was great. But this here for me, you're in my list of top 10 of people that I would trust what they say, because I think that you've been tried by fire. I think that as a result, your character is more Christ-like at this place in your life, to me, than a lot of people, not just preachers, that I know. Okay. So I just wanted to say that as it relates to those of you that have been blessed by, I hope you're writing down timestamps, Ken. Okay, that whole speech I just did was good. That'd be a good IG clip. What I need for you to do, write down the clips here. This, I also want to say this too. I want to talk to pastors, and we got some stuff. We're gonna end up having to do a part 3.
Oh yeah, definitely a part 3 for other reasons.
Yeah, and then the other people that have came forth. But I'm gonna talk to you about that after I say this. I want to say this too about pastors.
Yes.
Oh my God, these conversations are just so heavy for me, and it make me pray through the night. And pastors' unprocessed, unexpressed sexuality is a problem. Pastors' unprocessed, unexpressed sexuality is a problem, because what happens is they start experimenting with those that are closest to them, which many times is their flock. And wait a minute, don't have a whole lot of judgment there, but you need to look at the teachers, the CEOs, the artists, musicians, your older siblings, older cousins, and therapists. They do the same thing. When you have to suppress what hasn't been processed in the world of your sexuality, you're not going to have proper sexual conduct. You just ain't going to do it. You're going to make decisions on a whim and do to a drive and a feeling, and you're going to do it quickly. And I understand that, but you have to consider teacher, pastor, CEO, artist, drummer, keyboard player, because we only look at the pastor, but this is happening with anybody in a position of power. You have to consider your influence and your power Because as it relates to the person that you are with, they see you as that influencer, as that person of power with great talent, and they themselves aren't even thinking when they're doing what they're doing with you because of your position of power. So don't think, pastor, preacher, artist, that this is a real relationship that you're developing with this person. You end up having feelings for them and you think it's mutual. That's all a farce, because it is impossible for you to connect in your humanity when you plan these roles of power inside of a religious institution. All right. I just had to get it off of my chest because it's sitting on me and it's making me really heavy.
Yeah.
Now I want to ask you a question, and you can decide not to answer it, but I've been doing this job for a while, and there's some things I know about that camp, and there's some names, and I haven't been able to make it make sense. And I think you would know. 2 names. They're really 6, but I'm not going to call 6. 2, because it's from that work and it's years ago. One is past: Roosevelt Ford, Tim Anderson, Richard Youngblood, which is your brother, because he worked with Jakes, correct?
Correct.
And Tim Anderson was youth pastor, so was somewhere in there, correct?
Correct.
I heard these stories. Is there any truth to any of these stories from what you know as it relates to Bishop Jakes?
Well, 100%. I'm going to say this relative to Bishop Roosevelt Ford. I was in the absolute dark of his life because, I'll give this quick synopsis. All right. So Higher Ground, we had pastors conference in Atlanta, Georgia. And in that conference, that was the first time that I had ever seen Pastor Ford. And I saw him in a very interesting light, and I chose to not get involved in what I saw. I went into my room and I just remained in my room. But sometime later, unbeknownst to others at his choice, we had some conversations. And he shared a lot of things with me. He got ill. He died in 2008. But I knew from that conference, and then a couple years later, he came to our national convention, which was held at the Potter's House in Dallas. And I watched what happened with him. Wonderful person, personality, and all, but totally, in my opinion, mishandled. Right now, I won't go any further than that because I'm going to respect him in that sense, and I would check something, and then I would say more at that point. As far as it comes to Tim or my brother absolutely just I'm not going to tell his full story because he's willing to come and share, but I'm going to say this. My brother literally left Pittsburgh with his entire family to go to Charleston, West Virginia to be with Bishop Jakes. My brother's words was he was going to go and find his Moses, and he was Joshua. Bishop Jakes absolutely welcomed this, eventually made him an armor bearer. My brother traveled with him. The experience that he had on the road with Bishop Jakes was a horrific experience, and it at a time when my brother and I eventually had full-on conversations to realize that both of us had crazy experiences with this person. Jakes did some additional things in my brother's story that were quite detrimental. My brother had written a blog about this, and back then Jakes was a pretty powerful person, and he did everything in his power to discredit my brother and myself at that time. Tim understands grooming like you can't imagine. Tim was saved at Higher Ground and became a youth pastor at the Potter's House under Bishop Jakes. And Tim also looks for the opportunity for part 3 or 4, whatever it is, to come and share very clearly. As a matter of fact, my brother and Tim are in that chat tonight, because they told me they would be watching that, because I now know, I don't know who brought these things to you, but I can say this, that these individuals, Tim has been in my life over 40 years, and my brother has been in my life my whole life, because he's 4 years older than me. And so what we're saying in essence about all of this is that people say, why are you bringing this out now? I want you to understand something, that we hear things that are happening today.
Yeah.
See, I got room for everybody's humanity, including my own. We're hearing things that are supposedly happening today. And it was frustrating to me, because I thought when this stuff happened 40 some years ago, and I was told that it was because my stock was rising, that means that you've outgrown these behavior patterns and treating people like they don't matter, like they're just numbers. And then to find out that this stuff is still happening in 2023 and 2024. So it's very frustrating in that sense. And so I felt compelled to have to share my own personal story, which included my own failures and my own humanity. But yes, I do know those 3 individuals. The Bishop Ford story is horrible. To me, and from what he told me, it was horrible, and it involved several people in the organization at that time. And so I'm going to leave it at that. But I'm say this to you, that the 3 names that you mentioned absolutely have had history with Bishop Jakes, and their history is horrible, and it's not much different than mine.
I heard from some people that had their own personal experience with Quanda Wilson as well. This conversation really opened up a conversation that people have been holding, waiting to have. And then I also was contacted by those that I've already spoke to, that a couple of them have been paid off by Jakes before. And now they're considering, you know what? It was more than me. Larry, maybe we need to talk on camera. So I think that's all because of you. And I thought that I really don't like this. But I know we got to have the conversation. I like that part, but I don't like it. I just don't like it. I don't like it. I can't put it in words, and I usually don't share like this. But anybody who's watched me do this work behind the scenes, y'all know I go through 1,000 changes before I start having to have a conversation about something somebody done. Because this is worse than a pastor having a baby by another woman and hiding him, in my opinion. That child is scarred forever. But when a person, you 57, I think you said.
Yes.
This happened decades ago, and it affected how you showed up in your world. And I don't even know how it affected your wife, because you still with the same wife.
Yes.
How in that man, and you got kids too, right?
Yes.
I can't imagine. And how old are your kids?
My youngest daughter is born in 1992, and my oldest was born in 1990. And then I've got some children in love that we've adopted along the road as well. But yes, my children have gone through tremendously, because Number one, because of what my dad had done to my sisters, I decided I would never do this to my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked my wife to come off her job and to spend time with them. So I wasn't as much emotionally involved with them. And I'm sure the way they would see it is dad is kind of detached.
But did you do that because you didn't trust yourself?
I don't think that I felt that I would have done anything to them, but at the same time, I just didn't know what the possibilities were. I just know I wanted them protected from this ever happening. My children have never spent the night at their grandparents' home.
Mine neither.
And so there are things that I know they don't fully understand in that light. But at the time, again, remember, I had kicked my own father out of my own heart. So there was no way I was going to give him access to my children without my wife or myself being present, things of that nature. But I want to say this beyond all that, Larry, from what is being shared in here tonight. This is the fault of the thing we call the church system. See, there's a mistake that I hear that is so loud in church, and that is we assign so much to the Holy Spirit. Do you know we're assigning stuff to the Holy Spirit that humans have to do?
Come on.
If some of this stuff we're talking about tonight, which is very common in the world, is going to be dealt with. You can't come down somebody's aisle and somebody hickamasanda over top of you, and this all goes away. This is what we were taught. My dad came and stood behind me when I was 17 years old in a prayer service, laid his hands on my shoulders, speaking in tongues, and said that God said tonight it's been dealt with. He was talking about my sexuality. And I don't a bit more like a man on this moon believe that you can lay hands on somebody and cancel all of the things that they're going to have to deal with. And so years ago in church, they didn't believe in therapy. We didn't believe in good counsel. Everything was coming through the spiritual leader. One man, one woman was supposed to have it all. And if you go back further and check how we got here, I mean, people who had slaves wanted us to have that type of leadership because they could control those people and send them out with the messages they wanted the slaves to hear. Here we are in 2024, and we don't understand that sometimes a message that keeps you giving your money so you can get blessed, or keeping yourself under authority so you don't be cursed, and all these things fit people up front. But the people in the seats, it takes forever for them to get better. And they can go from one church to the other church and think this one is better. But the problem is not the leader. The problem is the system. And until the system changes, this kind of stuff is going to continue to happen. In the book of Acts, for those of you who love the Bible about this, the book of Acts didn't have no pastor. It had a plurality of elders, because God would never believe that one person's perspective would be enough to govern all the things happening in a congregation. And so we've made these people heroes and champions. Listen, Bishop Jakes has even said that when he steps on stage, he feels like God. We don't understand when we cheering and celebrating insecure people, including myself. Sometimes you need that celebration, and that person, you the man, you the best, or when you preach, people jumping and skipping and running around the building. You see that week after week after week. You don't know what that's doing to a damaged person already, because I don't believe for one second that what these individuals tried to do with me, or what I tried to do with other individuals, is just isolated. This stuff is globally happening. And until people stop falling for the fact that somebody is so more spiritually advanced than you, and God speaks to them for your whole house, and he don't tell you nothing about you and your kids, until we stop that nonsense and start believing in God and you're going to always have this kind of confusion and these types of stories happening in the church.
Uncovering, discovering, and realizing God in you will bankrupt every religious organization that thrives by disconnecting people from their thinking capacity.
From your thinking capacity and your family. Because I'm telling you, I don't know about everybody's churches, but I spent too much time in places where we were not taught to really go home and get it right.
Yeah.
Y'all work on it. Work on it. Instead of having all these services and all this time at the church and got the woman cooking for the pastor and her husband ain't getting no food. Instead of all this divisive stuff, to literally say, we're going to share this word with you, but we want you to go home and y'all work on this together. We only have a perspective. We're only sharing something with you this morning or this evening, but go home and work on it together. It'll strengthen families. But I'm telling you, I'm sitting here tonight. I've got family members in the chat who love me, whom I love, but I've also got family members that I so want to connect with as the days and the weeks and the months go by, because more than leading a church of thousands, I would love to have a good relationship with people who I share DNA, because there is something powerful when people who share DNA can look past what you know about each other and celebrate the commonness that you have with a God who is sending all of you something through that DNA. And so I'm excited for what's coming, Larry, because I believe it's good. And I got room for Bishop Watkins' humanity. You said you made a statement about Bishop Watkins maybe did this to Jakes. I don't know what Bishop Watkins may have did do, but I'm going to say this concerning Bishop Sherman Watkins. The years that I spent with Bishop Watkins, most of it was absolutely good. There's today in my life, there is no way I understand how to handle finances, manage finances, invest money if it wasn't for Dr. Sherman S. Watkins. He clearly shared so many great and good things with me. I firmly believe that what happened to Bishop Watkins is that T.D. Jakes became his cash cow. And see, money changes us. Bishop Watkins was well established, flourishing, well loved, and liked in that community. And he had something that made me look and highly respecting. But I'm telling you, if you're not careful, the love of money is the root of all evil. And if you're not careful, you will trade in everybody for some money.
Money is the root of all evil, because money always reflects wherever evil is
in the heart. That's right.
Right. And you just confirmed more for me who you are and your intention. Because the same person that violated you, you turn around and say, now wait, that ain't all he did to me.
No.
That, I ain't seen that. Y'all tell me in the chat, you seen that online on these YouTube shows, on TV. I ain't seen that. Maybe I missed it. But for me, because see, that's what I would do. And I do that all the time when I'm talking about Jakes and these other people. I say, well, I always tell both sides. For me, that just confirmed for me that no, I would be stupid to not consider a great deal of what you say as the absolute truth.
Mama.
Because that proves to me your intention. Okay, now, now I heard a rumor, but I can't confirm it, although I did see a video that Bishop Sherman Watkins stepped down today from his ministry. Now, the video I saw that I don't want to play on the platform because it's so blurry, but I got it. His exact words were, I'm going to leave you, but I'm going to leave you in good hands. And was pulling some other man up there, I guess that's been with him for a long time. Then I heard that in his message, he said, now I didn't get this clip, that what's been said about me is not true. I don't like boys, I like girls. Do you think? First of all, I'm gonna say this. Now we know where Bishop Jakes get it from. Cause when Bishop Jakes came up in that pulpit last year, December, in that red jacket, and answered back Larry Live show how he handled Carlton Pearson, and then came back and answered us again when we began to discuss him and P. Diddy. I was saying on my platform, somebody said, well, Larry, answer back to you done made it. No, I made it when I first made my first million.
Come on.
I ain't thinking about him. That's not a win for me. I said, you're stupid. Why are you answering me back? Why are you using the pulpit to answer this stuff? That's a storefront church preacher move. And that let me see the video I saw of Sherman. He learned it from him. It's stupid to do. You validate and verify a person's story when you get on your platform and then you start saying what they saying ain't the truth. Now, if they had got up there and said, because both of them did the same thing, said it's not true. If they had got up there and said anything, it would have been, pray for me. There are some things I've done in my past, or either tell us what it is, then we can move on. But to do that, you really set yourself up for a pull down, not a fall, but a pull down to where other powers get involved to begin to pull you down. And when I say other powers, I'm not talking spirit, ethereal, celestial. I'm talking FBI, SBI, IRS, them letters. Because we saw that with P. Diddy and others before. Have others contacted? First of all, do you think that he stepped down, or you think there was a knee-jerk reaction because he was in the moment? What do you think about that?
Well, knowing Bishop Watkins the way that I know him, and I think I know him very well, Bishop made a move today that is detrimental for years to come. Bishop chose today to preserve his image and not his church. He chose to stand up there and say, I didn't do it. And meanwhile, what was said about him from me happened prior to 2005, because I said I left in 2005. But he couldn't even speak truth to that. Instead, he did what I've seen done many times when I was there. It's not the truth. I would never, when I left Higher Ground, like I said, there is an email trail from Bishop Watkins and I. There is an email trail of why I told him I was leaving. There is an email trail of when I referenced to him about the things that he said to me concerning other men. There's an email trail of all of this. So in that time, he said he had never been with another man. He was writing this in an email because he wanted me. He knew he was writing it, but he had previously shared so much. And there's some things I will never do to Sherman Watkins. I don't care what he does. There's some things I'm not going to cross the line and do to him. I'm just not going to do that. But I will say this much. Today, I don't know that he stepped down, because I believe that if he stood up there, he did what he's never done before. He said that, because I saw this video clip, he said that this is the person, and he walked off and left that man at the podium with the microphone. This is after he had already preached. He said, we're not going to leave. We're going to continue to praise God. Yes. I don't care what the devil said. This is all the stuff that preachers can do when you're in the moment. Right. I've made so many bad decisions moving in the fear of the moment, as opposed to taking a moment and think it over.
Now, if he didn't step down, then he needs to explain this video, because all of what you just said, he said, what he did. Larry Reid has the video. Watched it myself, the audio and the but y'all let me know if you think the audio you can make it out. To me, I had to listen 159,000 times in order to understand what the hell he was saying. And then he don't talk that good. I don't mean to talk about your ex-spiritual father, but I'm just saying he don't talk that good. And my nervous system ain't got it. All right, hold on. See if you can hear it.
But I want to tell you, I'm leaving you in good hands. I'm telling you that. And we ain't going to stop praising. And ain't nobody going to leave. We going to still be praising. We going to still be praising. We going to still be praising. We been here since we were a little boy. We gonna still going to praise him. I don't care what the devil say. I don't care what the devil say.
Oh, he made like he was about to shout some. And he said, there's some more to this, but did y'all hear how Duane said word for word what I'm inclined to just believe you. I'm inclined to believe because your character is just shining through in all of this. Now, I got a couple of questions, and I know, forgive us if y'all feel like we're jumping around and leaving stuff untucked, but clearly we're going to be doing another conversation, and I do want to talk to Richard Youngblood, and I do want to talk to Tim Anderson, and I want to say to those of you that are watching that I talk to that I'll never share your name, I think it's a good time for you to have the conversation. But what I don't want it to be is we going after Jakes. We going after Jakes. It's y'all. This stuff I've been knowing since 18, and I've had to cover a lot of Jake stuff, and I never can. I could have sat right here and told everybody the story, but that's not how I operate. But the conversation needs to be had, and this is something that needs to be considered. Why no one saw that Jakes was struggling or is struggling in his sexuality and did not say something to him about moving differently than the way that he has been moving? I mean, he's been paying off people. I mean, left and right. And some of that, you guys, I have been involved. What you mean, Reid? Let me explain. I knew what was happening, and I knew people were being paid. Somebody say, well, why you let people be paid off? Listen, if I have been touched, and I have by 6 of my cousins, if any of them was rich, way richer than me, I would want to be paid for my pain. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. So when I know that's going on, and yes, I have watched that be done with Jakes and so many other preachers, I just go quiet and because what am I here to do? To create a conversation, laugh, and learn. I am not the court. I am not God. It's not my place to pull nobody down or pull the covers off nobody. But if it come out, we're going to talk about it and get everything out of what we need to get. So in that spirit and energy, I say I want to talk to Richard Youngblood. I say I want to talk to Tim Anderson. And I will not call the other names.
Yes.
Because I think it needs to be a conversation. And I love that Duane Youngblood doesn't have nothing to lose, has his wife, his homes, his money, and a pretty well-off man. And I think because of that is why you can just tell the truth and sleep well at night. So I want to ask you a question, a couple of questions, Duane, but it's not really coming from me, really.
Mm-hmm.
And a question I'm about to ask, I've never asked anybody because I don't think it's nobody's business. But I have a question. How would you describe your sexuality today?
I think the question is a little lower. I think that's a question that fits If I was in a church setting, that would be a good question. If I was a person who was really tuned into what culture is saying and doing right now, that's a good question. But for the process that I'm in, there's a word, evolve, an evolving process. I'm learning so many things about myself that I feel where I have not fully come to the complete answers. There's a word that's used in various communities called fluid. When things are moving in a particular direction of life, I'm not going to name it and title it and all of those things, because I really do believe that I'm in a process. When you have things happen the way they happened in my life, as early as they happened in my life, you take the time and day by day. I am not going to, in any area of my life, ever again rush or be rushed into anything. So what I say in that particular area, because I don't answer this question as a bishop. I answer this question today as a human.
Yes.
I'm allowing myself to evolve and to come to a point in my life where what I say, I'm gonna tell you why, Larry, this is critical. Because there was a time in my life that I was a people pleaser. And after I got arrested, I wrote a book called Freedom from Homosexuality. I wrote that book because I really wanted people on my side. I wanted them to believe that I was better, and I was all this nonsense that was to appease that group of people. Well, I'm no longer interested in appeasing them. I'm interested in pleasing God and myself. And so that means getting to the core of what's real. So I won't be making no statements about sexuality and writing books about what God is for and God ain't against. I'm going to do the good work of getting up tomorrow, if God gives me the strength, and continuing to do the work of evolving in my own life. And I'm thankful, the best part, I'm thankful to have people in my life who want me to do that, because most people don't get to do that work in their lifetime. Most people, unfortunately, end up saying what they think people want them to say, doing what they think people want them to do while they're in front of people, stuff like that. I'm done with that life.
I fully 100% understand, in light of all that we know you have been through, and I'm sure that's only the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
That you are in the process and in the journey, and you don't want to name anything just because somebody asked you, especially if within yourself you're still data collecting, experiencing things from the recesses of your mind and still having new experiences. I got it. So for all of you, and I asked that question for the chat.
Absolutely. I'm glad.
Not my chat, but I went to another platform who I love. He's in the chat. The official Thais report. And a lot of the people over there, I can't understand the obsession with other people's sexuality if you're not trying to fuck them. And so I never asked that question, but I asked that question
I have no problem
for them. And I would like to say this now that I asked it for them. Why in the whole hell in the heaven you want to know or care when the title of this whole conversation is from abuse to abuser, and we're discussing all of the abuse? Why you want to know if he still get hard when he see a nigga? I don't understand that. I don't, and I think there is an ungodly desire to know more than what you have the right to know across the board. That's one big thing with this whole everybody being transparent. And this is a mistake I made. I shared too much. And it gave people opportunity to create lies out of the thin air and then use clips and blurbs from what I say here to confirm some narrative that's just not true. So I think that we need to not care about who we ain't frucking It ain't none of your, and I really want to cuss. It's it's none of your business. Ooh, Lord, that was so hard because I felt like it was just right to cuss. But just stop it. If you are not sleeping with them, and he's a married man, why you want to know? If the wife with him, then clearly they're good friends and they got a great relationship, and that's something she understands. And so she's there for a reason. Hell, and y'all see he ain't ugly. And she 57 too. She know all these niggas out here is crazy. She said, well, I got this one that I know love me. So I might as well just keep being with him. I will understand that too. All right. Okay. I got it. 1 minute. Oh, we've been an hour and 35 minutes. Okay. But we're going to do more parts. And even if Tim and Richard need you to be on with them, I'm okay with that. I mean, just for that kind of thing. All right. Has any people contacted you since this interview telling you a similar story of their experience?
Absolutely. I've had whew, I can't even count the numbers of people who have, first of all, people were trying to find a way to reach me. So
that's good to be exclusive.
Yeah. So I wasn't as visible and available in social media. I've had boatloads of people in my Facebook page requesting friendship and all kinds of things, but I've gotten quite a few emails and calls and text messages, along with my family members have received them as well. And people have, in every camp that I addressed, everything except my father, in Quandra Wilson's life, Bishop Jakes, and Bishop Watkins, I've been approached with multiple situations that some recent, very recent, and some that were a little bit ago. So absolutely. And here's what was the best part of all of it. I don't know. The best part to me was that people are feeling like, you know what, it's time for me to recover. Hey. Because people get, I can only imagine, because of the people that I genuinely had some love for, but I hurt these people. There's nothing more today that I want than to see those people okay. Yeah. There are people who've talked to me this week, today, as a matter of fact, who really are in a very confused state, and I just want to see them be okay. And they felt that they could share with me, because of the interview, they could share with me what had happened to them. And I must say this to you, that it seriously saddens me to know that this is so widespread, and it's not just Greater Emmanuel and Higher Ground; it's everywhere. Right. But it's sad that it's like it is.
It is sad, but people like you and me who are not afraid to have conversations, it helps them
absolutely,
process whatever they got going on. 110,000 priests that served, I think it was in a 2 or 3 year period. About 5,000 of them were found to be messing around with the members, particularly the altar boys. Mm-hmm. And I've never understood why the Catholic Church, that all black churches revere wearing the collars and all different color shirts. I'm not going to drag it because my mentor do it, and I am not going to be dragging my mentor, but he know how I feel. That revere so much. You revere a church that is founded on slavery and sexual deviance and power plays. Why are we revering the Roman Catholic Church? Could that be some of the infestation, the root cause of some of the infestation that is happening in our churches, because these abuse cases keep piling up. And the Catholic Church has got so much money, they pay everybody off. And the reality is, Jake's nickname in the Black church was the Black Pope, and he's been able to, pay out at this point. I'll feel safe to say millions, pay out millions of dollars. I think the church needs to look at herself, and I hear people say, "Close it, get rid of it." I don't feel that way. It just needs reform. A reform in the system and the way that it is. I have always said that I think the way the church is set up, you go into a room and listen to one man talk every single week, sometimes several times a week. It's not good for you or him if nobody is considering the repercussions of that kind of setup.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things we need to talk about. If I'm coming every Sunday and there's music, that emotionalism, we having a transcendent experience as a people. So we all get turned on together. And then you have this man that is speaking to us, that we're looking at, that we are being engaged with. It really sets things up to where these men become like gods. Like you said, Jake said when he get on the stage, he feel like God. And then you begin to worship them like God and hold them in a world that they don't even exist in. I think it's all fruct to the high heavens, and it needs reform. And I think you are a key player in causing this reform to happen. Do you feel that this that you're doing is I know you're doing it for yourself, but can you see the ministerial side of this, having this conversation?
Oh yeah, this week just literally blew my mind with the numbers of people who that interview personally. I'm not talking about the people who had no connection and therefore it was just something to talk about. I'm talking about people who, in something that I shared, could connect to it. Those individuals found a lifeline, and I didn't expect it to be a lifeline, but they found it to be one. And it makes me realize, because Larry, I was literally saying that I wanted to know what was next. And God had shared with me, I believed that I needed to come out of this tunnel, and this story sharing was the way I would get out of the tunnel to know what's next. One of the things I learned this week that was so difficult was that if men come out and say this kind of stuff, is treated differently.
It is.
Than if women come out and say it.
Well, I ain't gonna see no woman. I don't see no woman coming out and saying that I was touching my students, and I was no.
If he says that she was abused,
oh yeah,
it's way more believable than a man saying it. And so there's so many guys sitting in the dark dealing with the pain because they don't feel that they could speak. Think of it like this: someone who's not gay,
right?
So how do you feel comfortable even having that conversation, whether it's a therapist or whatever? But I'm suggesting to people that if something is keeping you from your peace, you don't have to come on Larry Reid Live, but you need to get with yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's going to impact every relationship. Trust me, I didn't know it until I look back. When I look back, I can see how I damaged people that I say I loved because I was carrying a virus that was interfering with every connection I was trying to make. And so I strongly see that this story has begun something that I'm willing to allow God, as however he sees to use it, to continue it to be an assist in people's lives. You asked me before about a book. And my book may be a month or so away from being released and YouTube and stuff like that. But I didn't come on here with any of that done. And I could have, because that's the kind of man I am. I know how to get stuff done so that it'd be ready.
Right.
But I didn't want to come here looking like I'm shopping something.
Yeah.
I'm really here to share a story, and I pray that people hearing this story will do something in your story, because your life deserves it. You deserve to live your best life, and you deserve to start right now. Don't wait. Get up, get started. And I guarantee you, you're going to be very extremely happy if you do. And I like this. I say this to people, and it's hard for some of them to understand it. Going to prison was the best thing that could have happened to me, because I would have never stepped down from that church. The mindset that I had, I would have continued to see people cycle in and out of there because of my own pain. And I would have stayed there because you have a loyal following of people. But where I sit today, I'm thankful to be able to help some leaders even see that it's in your best interest to take some time. It's in your best interest to consider, don't have a crash when you could simply pull the car over and say, you know what, I need to step out for a moment, get some things done so that I can be in a better place to help more people. And so I encourage you watching tonight, those of you who will see it later, if you can get beyond my story and beyond the things that you think about me and understand that I'm just one person. There are so many people with different stories who got the same kinds of pain, and they need an opportunity to get up.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So there was a few questions put in here. So let's see if we can do a quick fire, because we really
Go ahead.
14 more minutes left. I do want to say this, so let me take one of them minutes. There was a woman that did a video from Higher Ground that saw your video, and she talked about how Bishop Sherman Watkins hid her rape in the church. Is that correct?
That's what she said. She had been molested and raped for a long time, and he knew the person because they were in leadership, and he hid it. And she decided to go live yesterday and share it. She had conversations in the middle of the week concerning this interview that I had done last week, and she decided she was going to step up and do that.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, and I think she was interviewed by the official Thais report today.
Oh,
so you can go and watch her interview with him as she shared more. That's the official Thais report. So let's do some quick fire questions.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anyone willing to discuss the grooming and abuse from the women of God? Okay, this is one of my spiritual children. Joy, we might have to bring you on to have that conversation, because that is so rampant and it's not discussed at all. Same gender loving women in the church, that meaning the ones that pray from the motherboard and from the pulpit and from the choir room, pray on other women and turn them out, literally by eating them out. That's a whole mess. So let's have that conversation and look at that, because a lot of women have mama trauma and drama, and that's really the door that this happens through for a lot of women. And some women have had a whole lot of pain from men, and sometimes that's the door how they get into that. Some stay, some go back to being strictly, but it just all depends on the woman and the situation. All right, because sometimes sexuality can be circumstantial.
Yes.
All right. Another question. I have mixed emotions. I feel heavy. I didn't watch the first interview because I couldn't. I understand. So is it inevitable that the abused will become the abuser? No.
Absolutely not.
No. Absolutely. In fact,
statistically, it's less likely.
That's right. That's what I'm about to say. I love a smart black man. Right. Statistically, it's less likely. Remember that. James Powell, when are we going to see part 2 of the documentary? All to my personal documentary. Unfortunately, the files were destroyed, so we got to redo a lot of interviews all over again. We'll get back to it. I'm doing a lot of traveling now. I'm investing heavily. The ministry got all these reformations. I'll be in Africa on Friday for 10 days. I come back, I do holidays. I go back to Dubai, then I run to Aruba, then I got to go to Hong Kong. I got a lot of stuff I got going on. So, but I'm fully in investments right now. So give me a little time and we'll get it done. Thank you for asking, James Powell. Bongi, how you go? Not everyone who is groomed and abused become a grooming abuser. Thank you. Byron, what impact do you think your actions had on the victim and their families? Great question.
Actually, highly destructive. When you are considered by people to be a spiritual leader, a leader, whatever your position may be, any kind of leader, and you cross those lines and violate those relationships, you are not only are you wounding the person in a way that's going to take some time for them to deal with it, you're also wounding the way they see leadership. And it could be leader anywhere in life. And people need people to help them navigate on various levels. And so absolutely hurt people. Yeah. And I believe that it can create a cycle of hurt as well. When you hurt someone else, it could open them up to doing some of the very same things to themselves or to others. And so I can't tell you how saddened I am that I ever hurt anyone. But I know I have. And I get up and do stuff like this right here, or talk to people tonight or tomorrow, because I want the rest of my life to be good stuff. I can't change the crazy, the wrong stuff, but can I do something about today and tomorrow? And so, yes, it hurts people, detrimentally hurts them, scars them, as I've told you about my own story.
Yeah. Okay, so we're not going to get to the rest of the question. We only got 8 minutes because he's long-winded like me.
You said rapid fire, so I'm sorry.
That was slow.
That was not rapid.
All right, Renee, my question is, Mr. Youngblood, has anyone reached out to you to pay you to keep quiet about your story? Yes, I can answer that. Not directed to him. They reached out to me. All right. Official, that's where you can watch an interview, the official Thais report. Terribly addictive platform. How does he identify with regard to his sexuality? We've already answered that question. He ain't got no definition yet. His name is Duane. All right. How does he have children, namely sons? You have sons. We know you got
I have my natural children are daughters, but in my adopted children, I have sons. Okay. And I've talked with my sons this week, and my one son just was in tears, telling me how proud of me he was. Wow. And my other son, we talked a couple hours before this interview tonight. I'll see him tomorrow. And I'm thankful. I told them both, and I'm going to say this so you all can hear it. I've said this to my second son. We didn't have this conversation. My first son and another guy who had been in the church reached out to me, and I told them both this. I said, you know what? You guys have great relationship with me, high respect and regard for me, because I never tried to cross a line or violate you. But there are people that I did, and there are people that I've hurt, and those people don't feel the same way. So I'm very grateful for the kindness that I have from the people that who are kind, who've shown their kindness this week to me. But at the same time, I also understand there are people who are hurt and who I let down and disappointed. And so for those people, I pray that God mends those places in their hearts as well. But yes, I do have sons and daughters.
That was all we needed. You did all that.
Ain't that a mess?
A whole mess. That's what the church will do to you. Make you just.
That's what it'll do. See, sermonizing.
Okay, Stacy. Oh, that's one of how the kids, baby. What safeguards does he have in place to not go back to those negative behaviors? Great question.
Good. Great question. Well, let me say this as quick as I can get it out. One of the things I have in place now is I have a team, a support team in my life. Here's the other thing. 3 words: authenticity, integrity, which this is critical, and discipline. These 3 words never rated in my life until I started reading John Maxwell books. Authenticity, integrity, and discipline. So with a support team and really focusing on staying authentic, walking with integrity, and having the discipline to get up and carry it out every day, I feel pretty good about where I am and the direction that I'm headed.
Great. That was a little better. How do you reconcile being labeled as a sex offender within your close community?
I don't reconcile being labeled as a sex offender. I understand that the label sex offender is political. If I have happened, so I'm gonna say this because this ain't gonna be as quick, but people gonna love it. I was incarcerated with people who committed murder, and I taught classes, financial classes, to people who killed people, hung people, shot people, raped people, whatever. They were all there. And so I understand politically, when you're running for election, it's very good to put fear into people and say that you are going to be strong against sex offenders, because that term just creates such a crazy aura. But I challenge you to look up, and you will find statistically people who have sex offenders reoffend less than any other crime. I'm going to say it again.
It's true.
Sex offenders reoffend less. Now, they're disputing and debating about why that might be true, but it's more political than it is anything else. And so
same thing with child support. There's a whole that's
a family court. That's a mess. But the sex offender is a problem because, again, you're on a list. People can see your address and all that kind of stuff. So it's very political. There's a lot involved with it. And in my case, I have no problem with discussing the realities of that, because those are my realities. I am embracing my life and my story. I'm not going to hide from none of it, because if I authentically be me, I'm going to bless somebody and I'm going to be blessed.
Absolutely. I love that. Didn't Bishop Watkins recently step down? We discussed this. What about the situation with the 16-year-old? Do you identify? I only knew about 15-year-old and 17, right?
There ain't no 16-year-old, but that may be talking about the 15-year-old. I said the person can't give consent. Legally speaking, you can only give consent at a certain age. And I don't like the word consent when you're committing a violation against a person anyway.
That's why Texas came up with them laws. North Carolina threw it out, I think, but I know them laws for clergy, because a position of power. They need to do it for the others too. But that position of power, is the consent thing is shaky with that.
Yes.
And Texas. Hold on, where you at? Indiana, Ohio?
I'm in Pennsylvania.
Oh, but that's where it was. And 16 is not the age of consent there, right?
No.
It's 17, I think.
Yeah, you can give. There's certain things you can do, but there's certain things that are still a crime at 16.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. All right. At what age did you get married? Did you share this info with your wife? Great question.
I got married when I was 22 years of age in 1989, and I did not tell my wife all this stuff. My wife was young as well, and it's crazy. I'm sure everyone out there watching this, you can understand this, that when you're younger, especially when we were younger, a lot of people didn't talk about a whole lot of stuff. People didn't even know how to broach this stuff. I had one conversation with my wife before we got married about some things around my sexuality. One conversation. And so absolutely not. I didn't entrust that with her. And today, that would be a great regret, except for the fact that I in no way was in a position or under any instruction that that was something that you should do.
I know what you're talking about. I know that, but I did. I was crazy. I told her everything. I told her everything. I even told her stuff that I told somebody else I wouldn't tell, but I told it anyway. Because I mean, people who I'm married to, so I need to tell them. That's how I feel like. And plus, we are friends, you know. So
yeah,
it makes a difference. Let me see here. What do you all hope to accomplish by doing this? No, for real. It seems a bit trashy and like school on Saturday, no class. Okay. I only think we should respond to that.
Okay.
I say that this is probably somebody that just love who they love, and I can't blame them for that. So they can't. This is how come I said what I said earlier. If these people we're discussing have done great things for you, you should hold them in that honor, in that regard. But in addition to that, consider any and all truths concerning their truths concerning their humanity. And in this situation, we were not there when these acts were committed, but there's been what the courts will call it circumstantial evidence that proves for me that what he is saying is the truth, because there's so many people corroborating your story. Someone say his Bishop Long is owed an apology. Now, I know why you're saying that, because that means you watched Larry live. I said this in 2019, that there was a list of preachers, and I referred to Jakes, that need to apologize, because all of them were doing the same thing. And they ran away from Bishop Long like he was the only guilty person. They were all shot. That is not the case. They will go do this stuff all together. And that story has yet, at least for me, I don't know about other platforms, has not been told until I can get one of them to I ain't gonna say trying to get one of them, but until one of them make a decision to talk to me publicly. Although I've already talked to them. That's how that is.
My mom.
All right. Somebody says T.D. Jakes and Sherman Watkins shared a young man from Columbus. They trafficked that boy, and we know it. The nail in the coffin is that young boy. He has it all, and they keep him surrounded. They only let him out short times, but they keep him on a short leash. I can't confirm that, and this is coming from Toby Kente. Larry did not say it.
Well, I'm going to say this. I don't know which young boy he might be referring to, but I can tell you this much. There is a person with a major story whenever he decides that he really wants to live his best life. He'll walk into it. And if he's going to walk into it, he got to walk out of some other situations. And I respect the person's comment.
Okay. I can't take no more. All right, this is the last question. Oh Lord, and we 3 minutes over. Okay, what was the reason for the split between Higher
Ground and Greater Emmanuel? Mm-hmm. Ultimately, I just believe that Bishop Watkins felt to go a different direction and a different method. Bishop Wilson was quite kingdom and praise team and worship dancers and whatnot, and Higher Ground is not that. Bishop Watkins is more of a sermonizer, and they're gonna have show enough knockdown drag out church, and so the two just didn't look the same, and the two leaders saw it differently, and so you could see it play out in the way in which the organizations went.
Yeah, we are complete. Question at this point in your journey: how do you keep from trigger whenever you encounter an attractive male teen, church, grocery store, out in the public? I think this is a great question. Our last one too.
Yeah, I want to say this is good for me. I don't find myself attracted to teens. Mm-hmm. I want to say something that I think people were going to have to consider. A lot of times when things happen to you at an early age, you emotionally stop your own development. So for me, part of what could have been perceived as attraction was because that was my other. That's where I was.
Yes.
You are sitting here looking at a mature, masculine man who there is nothing that a teen is going to do for me.
Amen.
And that's in my reality. That doesn't mean that people aren't attractive, but it doesn't have the impact that you may think that it could, because I think I've done some work myself. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm careless and callous in how I approach life. It just means that I'm quite aware of where I'm at in my own journey. I keep a good support system with me, and I live authentically in those realms of my life with integrity. So I just thank God for that.
Well, Duane Youngblood,
Yes,
once
sir.
again, you have led a conversation that is insightful that we're going to be thinking about. We're going to watch this more than once. I enjoy conversation with you. What is your sign?
Capricorn.
Okay, of course I would. You come across like a cap. So do you know what your rising is?
I don't.
You don't? Okay. All right. Okay, I can help you with that. But you're a late Capricorn. You almost
kind of in the middle, because I'm December 29th.
Oh no, you were early Cap. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, so anyway, great conversation. Thank you so much. Tim Anderson, Richard Youngblood. Let me know when you're ready. Now I'm going to Africa Friday, but I can still work from Ghana. So it might not look as beautiful, but we can make it work.
Yes.
And if I have the time while I'm there, I can do that there. I come back like 10 days later, and we can probably people need about 10, 15 days to sit with these two interviews. And then we can come back right before Thanksgiving, and we can do those back to back. All right. So y'all just work, get me through Duane. All right.
Yep.
All right. God bless each and every one. And this is what I want y'all to do. Oh, shoot. I didn't even think about this. Please donate to the platform right now. It's $8.88. 3/8 mean Christ. So every time that you are giving $8.88 or got 3/8 in it, you are literally giving and planting into a harvest that is on the way, that is filled with Christ consciousness and Christ theology. So do that. These are the ways you can do it. Cash App $MBN Network. Please put your phone number in the memo section. You can text the word give to 404-800-4530. You can also send it through Zelle, but use the email address info@thembnnetwork.org. Venmo @MBN Network. Please make sure you spell it right. Or you can go to the mbnnetwork.org and you can click donate, and that's PayPal, which you can write a couple of sentences there in the memo section in addition to your number. Or just go to pushpay.com/gforgiven/the MBN Network. And if you want to do this easier, just go to your app store, type in the MBN Network, download the app, and you can always do your giving that easy right there. If you have enjoyed, please support this platform. And I thank you for being here. And I also want to invite you guys to go to IG and follow the MBN Network IG. Y'all follow me on Larry Live, but I need for y'all to follow the ministry on the MBN Network. Something amazing happened this morning in Reformation Prayer, Prophecy, and Coaching Call, Duane. For years, I've done spiritual work, exorcism, house cleansing and stuff, and prophesying. But that type of stuff work. It's always been segmented. Over here, my music. Over here, my preaching. Over here, prophecy. Over here, casting out demons and house cleansings and stuff. And over here's the actor. But what has happened since 2022, when me and my parents had it, my my sight gift has entered the world of my personal prophecy with people, and it's getting very interesting. So my best friend, who we've been best friends for 30 something years, he had gave a super seed, because we do giving in 4 levels, because everybody's at different levels of their faith and finances. So the ones who give at the super seed level, right there in the moment, I speak the word of the Lord to them. But in that prophesying what God is telling me to say, my sight, which is the gift God gave me, opens up, and I'm able to peer in different places, sometimes in the ancestral plane. And his ancestors start coming through and confirming some things. And it's been going on heavily lately. A baby that was aborted spoke to the mom during a prophecy. I mean, it's just been crazy, but those clips are on the MBN Network IG page. They pulled them from our prayer call. So follow the MBN Network @ the MBN Network IG page. Just listen to those prophetic moments and enjoy them. And I know some of you go, oh my God, you talking to dead people, however you want to say it. I mean, I don't care. I mean, I've been called a witch for decades. There's nothing else anybody can say about me. I can't feel it. I don't care. So I don't care. I accept. If I accept it or feel it, I feel it in a positive light, even if it's negative. It's just how it is. So I don't mind that. But I want you to enjoy that, and I want you to learn from it, especially those of you that are prophetic, because as I'm seeing and giving it, I'm explaining what is happening and how I'm receiving the information. So that could help you in you using your gift to bless other people's life. Duane, how can we follow you online?
Well, I created a YouTube space. It's Duane Youngblood on YouTube. And if you're on Facebook, it's Duane Youngblood there. And then I'm very much more bigger in TikTok world because of the business stuff that I do. Over there, it's the Duane Y Blood on TikTok. But my YouTube space is where I'm going to begin. When I'm going to begin speaking more to this type of stuff.
When would that be? First of the year after holidays?
It's going to be before then, but lightly, but my book will be ready for the first of the year. And so then is when we'll see the real ramp up in the beginning of the year.
We'll be tuning in. I trust your voice and your lens on quite a few things you discussed. All right, I'm probably going to be putting a little something to nibble in my mouth and lay back in my bed and watch the official Ty East Report review. And shout out to all of you guys that review these interviews. I thank you. I don't care if you are memes, make it make sense, send a lot of people to watch the video. I don't even care how you feel about it. I don't even care how you feel about me. Thank you.
Yes.
Some of you, I know you enjoyed the conversation, but some of you just are as you are, but you still working for me and being my advertisement. So I don't mind. I'm not going to strike nobody channel. That's something I used to do when I first started doing YouTube. I don't care that much no more. Enjoy it however way you decide to enjoy it. Duane, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want you to hear me say thank you, because you could have went anywhere else, but you trusted this platform, and it was a wise move, because it was 2-3 hours. They were calling, trying to figure out what they can do to keep the rest of the parts from happening. But this is great ministry.
A lot more to do here. A lot more.
Yeah. All right. Let me go. Look at my best friend trying to get me off the internet. I don't understand. He said, "Oh, he said I should strike, but buy. I should, but buy. Oh, okay. What's pointless? I don't know. I want y'all to continue to do it. Continue to do it. It's all right. I love, and I think I'll love you for doing it. Even if you don't love it like me, I don't feel the same. All right. See you later. God bless. And make sure you play. God don't play about me. before you go to bed.
Yes.